35-year-old Crystal Rogers lived in Bardstown, Kentucky with her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, their 2-year-old son, Eli, and her 4 children from her previous marriage in 2015. Known as the bourbon capital of the world, Bardstown is a small town with a population of just below 14,000 people. Crystal was the eldest daughter of Tommy and Sherry Ballard. By all accounts, they were very close. She worked 2 jobs to make sure her 5 children were always well taken care of. Crystal, Eli, and Brooks visited his family's farm on the weekend of the 4th of July. It is a 245-acre farm located about 9 miles south of downtown Bardstown. Crystal dropped 2 of her children off at her ex-husband's house and left 2 children with a babysitter. On the morning of the 4th of July, 2015, Brooks woke up and Eli was next to him, but there was no sign of Crystal. She had completely vanished. Her car was not on the driveway. Interestingly, Brooks did not report her missing. He continued to celebrate 4th of July with his family at the farm. According to him, he was not initially worried about her absence, since she often went out with friends and stayed out late, sometimes not coming home until the next morning. Crystal's family, however, was immediately concerned. They began to worry after multiple attempts to contact her that day without her answering her phone. Crystal's mother, Sherry Ballard, reported her missing 2 days later on July 5th. She told the newspaper afterwards, "I told Brooks I'm going to the police department to report her missing, and he said, that is what you should do." Also on July 5th, Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, found her maroon 2007 Chevrolet Impala. It was parked with a flat tire by mile marker 14 of the Bluegrass Parkway. The keys were still in the ignition, and her purse and cell phone were also found inside. The driver's seat was not in its usual position. Crystal's family immediately knew that she had not been the last person to drive the car. Unfortunately, the discovery of Crystal's vehicle did not offer any clues as to her whereabouts. Her family subsequently announced a $25,000 reward for information leading to her disappearance. Sherry Ballard said through tear-filled eyes, "We love her, and we are trying to find her, and we just want her to come home." The community also stepped up in a big way, with family and strangers from all over setting out to search every inch of Nelson County and the surrounding area. Family member Sammy Johnson said, "We have searched the rivers, we have searched farms, houses, sinkholes, wells, any place she might be." The Ballard family was very vocal about their suspicion of Brooks Houck having some sort of involvement in Crystal's disappearance. In an interview, Crystal's sister said, "Brooks Houck has not offered once to search or help or do anything for the family." He admitted in an interview that he and Crystal had a stressed relationship at times, but he emphatically denied having anything to do with her disappearance. He said, "I am 100% completely innocent in this." Despite Crystal's family's criticisms, he claimed he was helping search efforts behind the scenes. 3 days after Crystal's car was found on July 8th, Brooks was brought in by the Nelson County Sheriff's Office for questioning. Brooks said that he and Crystal had a date night the evening she was last seen. According to him, they fed the cows, took a walk around midnight, and then he went to bed when they got home, and she was playing games on her phone. The timeline and other details of Brooks' story did not add up. It was heavily raining that night, so it did not make much sense that they were out walking in a field at the time, especially with their 2-year-old son. Nelson County Detective John Snow led the questioning and noticed the gaps in his story, but Brooks remained adamant that he had nothing to do with Crystal's disappearance. In the recording of the interview, Detective John Snow was questioning Brooks about a late-night phone call with a specific number on the night that Crystal had vanished. The call took place when Brooks, Crystal, and the children were in their truck heading home. The detective asked Brooks who it was that was calling him. Brooks reluctantly told him that the number belonged to Steve Lawson. Detective Snow asked who Steve Lawson is, and Brooks replied that it was somebody that worked for him. Brooks told the detective that he could not remember why Steve called him so late. Detective Snow then instructed Brooks to call Steve from inside the interrogation room. Steve's explanation was that he had called Brooks about a rental house. He said that Brooks told him to speak to Katie, who handled the properties, and that she would get back to him. Brooks interjected and corrected him by saying it was Crystal. After the phone call, Detective Snow asked Brooks why he told Steve Lawson that she would call him back when she apparently had been beside him in his truck at that moment. Brooks made an excuse that he did not want to bother Crystal that late with work stuff. Nick Houck, Brooks's brother and a Bardstown police officer, called Brooks on his cell phone when he knew Brooks was being interviewed by detectives and told him not to speak with police. The next day, Nick was called by city officials to testify in front of a grand jury, which led police to suspect he also had involvement in the disappearance of Crystal. It is at this time that Nick stopped cooperating with the sheriff's office. However, he agreed to a polygraph test after being interviewed by Kentucky State Police. Nick finally took a polygraph test on July 20th after being contacted by the FBI. The examiner expressed grave concerns about the results of the polygraph test with Bardstown Police Chief McCubbin. When confronted with the results, Nick denied that he was lying, saying, "I don't give a damn what your computer said. You are calling me a liar, and I don't like it when people call me a liar." Also in August 2015, Tommy and Sherry Ballard, Crystal's parents, started on the path of trying to get custody of Eli, the 2-year-old son Crystal had with Brooks Houck. That day in court was also the first time the Ballards saw Brooks Houck since Crystal was reported missing. Tommy Ballard said after the court hearing, "He made eye contact with me. I made eye contact with him. I just want to see my grandson. I'm not worried about nobody but my grandson and my daughter." The decision was made at the time that Eli will stay with Brooks. In October, 3 months after Crystal disappeared, it was declared that she was not alive anymore by the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. On October 16, 2015, Nick Houck was fired from the Bardstown Police Department for interfering with the investigation of Crystal's disappearance. He was accused of warning his brother that detectives planned to interview him and advising him not to speak with them. Nick later told the Kentucky State Police that he only contacted his brother to tell him that they might be trying to trip him up, and he should protect himself. Kentucky State Police officially named Brooks Houck a suspect in Crystal's disappearance in October 2015. A police officer said, "I have 8 pages of circumstances that led me to look in Brooks Houck's direction." Houck continued to deny his connection to the disappearance, saying, "My whole family's name is trashed for something completely not even tied to me. It is taking a lot of energy and effort. I cannot even go on the side of the road without looking like I am guilty. This is starting to get silly. I don't need an attorney. I am innocent. This, to me, is starting to get silly." Police subsequently released footage from the Houck brothers' separate police interviews. In December 2015, a local newspaper reported the arrest of Danny Singleton on 38 counts of false swearing after he allegedly lied under oath to a grand jury in relation to the investigation of Crystal's disappearance. Singleton is a close friend and longtime employee of Brooks Houck. Singleton later pleaded guilty and was released from jail after being in custody for 6 months. a white Buick became an important piece of evidence when a private investigator found that one was parked at the Houck farm the night Crystal disappeared. The Houck brothers' grandmother, Anna Whitesides, owned a white Buick, but sold it several weeks after Crystal went missing. In June 2016, authorities issued a subpoena for the 82-year-old to testify in front of a grand jury. The subpoena stated the car may have been used to dispose of a body, cleaned, and sold in an attempt to prevent evidence from being discovered. Anna Whitesides invoked her Fifth Amendment rights, refusing to testify in front of a grand jury for fear that she might incriminate herself. Whitesides' lawyer said, "There are lots of things, particularly in a high-profile case, where there is as frantic an investigation as there is here, that could ensnare an 82-year-old woman." According to attorney Jason Floyd, Anna Whitesides' statement to the police and the car buyer's information was enough. A judge later ruled to keep all future proceedings involving Whitesides confidential. Houck's grandmother had never been charged or arrested in connection with Crystal's disappearance, despite multiple search efforts over the year Crystal remained missing. Then, in August 2016, a more intensive search of the Houck family farm was performed. Police searched 300 acres with at least 14 cadaver dogs. Detective John Snow said a crime involving Crystal is believed to have happened at the Houck farm. Houck's grandmother, Anna Whitesides' home was searched, as were the homes of Nick Houck, his brother, and his mother Rosemary Houck, where several pieces of farm equipment were seized as potential evidence. The search was done in order to find DNA, a body, or other potentially useful evidence. John Snow said afterwards, "I'm hopeful. I think we are moving in the right direction. It's been a long road and it may be even longer, but I think we're getting close." In July 2017, Brooks Houck's new girlfriend, Crystal Maupin, was arrested after she was caught on camera ripping up signs connected to Crystal Rogers' case. Since Crystal's disappearance, signs in support of the family had been scattered all around Bardstown. Crystal Maupin stole some of those signs and was court-ordered to write an apology to Sherry Ballard. Sherry commented, "She could have just said, 'I'm sorry for my actions,' but instead it is like she was trying to defend herself." Crystal's dad, Tommy Ballard, searched every day for his daughter and even started his own investigation. 16 months after her disappearance, on the morning of November 19, 2017, her dedicated father was preparing to go on a hunting trip on the family property on Ed Brent Lake. His 12-year-old grandson, Crystal's eldest son, was with him. An unknown assailant approached Tommy Ballard and shot him in the chest. He did not survive. Tommy Ballard was 54 years old. The Nelson County Coroner's Office said Crystal's father was shot once in the chest, with the bullet entering his chest and exiting his back. Crystal's mother, Sherry, believed he was targeted because he was close to a breakthrough in their daughter's case. She told a newspaper that her husband lost his life because he looked for their missing daughter. She said her husband was always brainstorming new locations to search for Crystal and was the biggest champion in the fight to find her. Sherry Ballard believes he was targeted and even said he thought he was being followed in the days leading up to him being shot. The police searched Anna Whitesides' home again after the fatal shooting incident, but found nothing. Commissioner Rick Sanders hired 2 retired troopers to investigate a handful of unsolved and high-profile cases in Bardstown, including that of Crystal and her father, Tommy Ballard. In the meantime, Crystal's mother still tried to get custody over Eli, Crystal's youngest son, as Brooks was the primary guardian. Issuing a final ruling on the custody battle, Nelson Circuit Judge Stephen Hayden argued that There is clear and convincing evidence significant hostility exists between the Ballard family and Brooks, such that it poses a significant risk of emotional harm to the child. Sherry Ballard and her late husband filed a petition for grandparent visitation just weeks after Crystal went missing. Sherry told a local newspaper, "I've done everything possible that the courts have asked me. I still have no visitation for my grandson. That is my daughter's son, and I refuse to acknowledge that he is not my daughter's son. I feel like they want me to just erase him from my daughter's life, and I am not doing that anymore. I refuse to do that." After several trial court custody hearings, a judge initially granted Sherry visitation times with her grandson on alternating weekends. But a 3-judge panel overruled that decision in November 2018, agreeing that contention between Brooks and Sherry had boiled over to a point that it is not in the boy's best interest to spend time with his grandmother. Several hearings have followed that ruling. A new sheriff, Ramon Piñeroa, was elected in Nelson County in November 2018 after former sheriff Ed Mattingly stepped down. The sheriff's office had been the lead investigating agency in Crystal's disappearance. Ramon Piñeroa had stated his commitment to solving Crystal's case. In an interview, he said the agency had a good idea of what happened to Crystal, and his mission is to find enough facts and evidence to make an arrest. As the years had come and gone, there was a yearning for justice. Crystal's family never gave up the search for her and never stopped fighting for justice as her story continued to be shared on true crime podcasts and TV series. The Mother of Five's case has spawned documentaries and podcasts and plenty of news coverage. The Disappearance of Crystal Rogers is a crime series. The latest docuseries is part of the first episode of Season 3 of the popular Real Life Nightmare. Bourbon Town Mystery, produced by the HLN Investigations team, takes a deep dive into the disappearance of Crystal. Numerous podcasts have also focused on the Crystal Rogers case. Ever since her disappearance, Crystal's family had plastered signs around Bardstown and the neighboring communities asking for any information. The mystery of what happened to the 35-year-old had puzzled law enforcement, tortured her loved ones, and haunted the small town of Bardstown for many years. In July 2019, the lead detective in Crystal's case, John Snow, retired. In one of his last interviews, he was asked if Crystal's body would ever be found. He replied, "I think eventually she will be found. Yes." Nelson County Sheriff Chief Deputy Jody Gilliland was then named the new lead detective the following month. In 2019, Crystal's family held a vigil and said not a day goes by without thinking about her. Her mother said, "People say it gets better, but it does not. Every day is hard." The prayer vigil was held in remembrance of Crystal, but the family said it is also to keep her story alive in the hope of getting answers about her whereabouts. Her favorite color, pink, was everywhere. Pink t-shirts, pink ribbons, and a pink balloon released to close out the event. Sherry Ballard said it felt good to see the community continue to come out and support her daughter after all these years. She added, "I'm going to bring my daughter home, no matter how long it takes." Sherry Ballard said even before Crystal disappeared, her whole family was close. "It has been hard on the kids, but I do not want them to lose hope. God performs miracles, so there is always hope." As for leads in the case, Sherry said she is confident in the police that they will find Crystal. According to court documents, another hearing in the custody case of Crystal's youngest child was held on September 10, 2020, where new testimony was heard. In October 2020, Judge Hayden denied temporary visitation rights to Sherry Ballard. The court did not interview the child. Hayden ruled that the child has a strong relationship with Brooks, whom the judge described as a loving father. In court hearings, Brooks testified that the child only spends time with him, his mother, and his new girlfriend, whose name is also Crystal Maupin. Judge Hayden wrote, "The court believes the testimony by Sherry Ballard was sincere and that they would not do so on purpose, but is unconvinced they would be able to keep that vow given their demonstrated hostility toward Brooks." He continued, "It would be fair to say there exists a significant rift between the parties that will likely never be healed." July 2020 marked 5 years since Crystal was last seen in Bardstown. Her disappearance had garnered national attention, but there was still no answers and no sign of her. For the first time, one of Crystal's 5 children, Kylie, sat down with a radio station and talked about what life had been like without her mom. Kylie said, "Waking up every day and not being able to wake up and be like, 'Hey Mom,' and 'What are you going to do today?' Just like normal little things. The little things really matter more than the big, huge things. It is those millions of little things she has missed out on for 5 years now." Now 19 years old, Kylie was just 14 at the time of her mom's disappearance. She still recalled, "I was calling and texting and she was not answering. Nobody could get hold of her." She continued, "It is especially hard during life's milestones, like graduation. When I graduated high school, seeing all the kids with their moms and they were like so proud. I knew my mom was proud, but like just wanting her to be there physically, it was very hard to see other moms there." Kylie said that after a day like that, and almost every day, she writes to her mom in a journal, telling her this, and then the very next page I'll be telling her, "Well, this is very serious, like you should have been there." Like she's just right over my shoulder, talking back and reading what I'm writing. Over the years, the family raised money for information leading to an arrest in Crystal's and Tommy Ballard's cases. By the time Kylie was 19, the reward had grown to $100,000. Until justice is served, Crystal's family had one simple request. Everybody keep praying and do not lose hope. You give us hope and you keep us going. Federal authorities announced in August 2020 that they were taking over the investigation in Crystal's disappearance, which led to a slew of searches at properties belonging to the Houck family. During the summer of 2020, the FBI took over from Kentucky State Police and the Nelson County Sheriff's Office as the lead investigator in the case, with over 150 federal agents serving search warrants at 3 sites owned by Houck and his family members. An FBI Louisville spokesman previously said all 3 locations had already been searched to various degrees over the years. The search took place in the Woodlawn Springs subdivision, where Brooks Houck's construction company built several houses shortly after the disappearance of Crystal. Federal agents, with the help from Nelson County Highway Department vehicles, were continuing to zero in on a driveway and tuck away pieces of concrete and materials from outside a home. A photographer of a local newspaper saw investigators using a jackhammer on the driveway of a home. Throughout the search, police were allowing only a few cars into the subdivision and reporters were kept out. Crystal's mom commented on this search, "I do not think they would just randomly pick a driveway unless they had a reason to do that. When my daughter went missing, Houck was building in that neighborhood." The FBI had not disclosed any details of their findings at this location, but on August 27, 2021, they did announce that an item of interest had been recovered from the concrete at one of the homes. During this most recent search, the FBI also stated that they know there are people in Bardstown who have information on this case, and added that it was time for those people to come forward. One of the properties was the home of Brooks Houck, and another belonged to his brother Nick. On September 7, 2021, the FBI announced that the search in Bardstown had ended, with several items of interest sent to a lab in Virginia for testing. Sherry told a local newspaper she had a lot of hope that her family will soon finally learn what happened to their daughter. She said, "And I do have a lot of hope that this is where the investigation needs to be at, and that they may be able to provide me answers this time." Regarding the thought of finally finding out what happened to her daughter, Sherry said, "I want it, but it is going to be so hard for me. I just hope that I can handle that when they come to meet me with the news, even though I have waited for 6 years. I need closure. Her kids need closure. And to physically hear it, it's going to be so hard on us." The FBI has not released more details on the items of interest that were sent to the Virginia lab for testing. FBI spokeswoman Katie Anderson told a newspaper in October 2021 the agency had nothing new to share on the Crystal Rogers investigation. In 2021, the FBI said it was also offering up a $25,000 reward for information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction of the individual or individuals responsible for Crystal's disappearance. Crystal's case remained unsolved. One reason was that it was turned over several times between agencies. Sherry Ballard said in an interview in 2022, her daughter's children were then 22, 21, 19, 17, and 9. Crystal was a very good girl. She was a very good daughter. She was nice to everyone she met. She even let a friend stay with her because the friend didn't have a place to go. That is the type of person she was. We are a very close family, and I'm not doing anything different that any mother would do for their daughter at all." Crystal's mother added, "I am just praying we will get some kind of closure." She still remembers in vivid detail the day she went to the police station to report Crystal missing. "I remember them telling me it could be a year before we find any answers. And I was just shocked. I was just like, there's no way I'm waiting a year to find my daughter," Ballard said, holding back tears. In October 2022, the FBI launched another search at Brooks Farm, this time for 5 days. Afterwards, they said they won't comment on exactly what was collected. The land is owned by the mother of Brooks Houck. In January 2023, Attorney General Daniel Cameron appointed a special prosecutor to investigate Crystal's and her father's cases. On July 3, 2023, the 8th anniversary of her disappearance, the agency tweeted it made significant progress in bringing this case to its rightful conclusion. "We continue to pursue every available lead until those responsible for Crystal's disappearance are held accountable." On September 7, 2023, the investigation took a sudden turn when it was announced that a suspect had been charged in connection to the case. His name is Joseph Lawson. He is 32 years old and had never been publicly named as a suspect or having any connection to Crystal's case. The arrest was the first major development in years. Joseph Lawson had not been charged with Crystal's slaying, but instead faces a conspiracy charge. This means that the authorities believe he is connected to some level in the planning or commission of the acts that led to Crystal's presumed demise. Her body still had not been found. Lawson was also charged with tampering with physical evidence, which means investigators claimed Lawson might have destroyed, concealed, removed, altered, or fabricated physical evidence with the intent to impair the official proceeding. The charge of conspiracy was filed July 24th, and the charge of tampering with evidence in June. but it wasn't arraigned since he was in the hospital after the indictments were returned. Lawson appeared on Zoom as he was arraigned in the Nelson Circuit Court. His indictment was read out and the court entered a plea of not guilty for him. His bond was set at $500,000 cash for the conspiracy charge and $50,000 bond for the complicity to tampering with physical evidence charge. Though the indictment did not mention Crystal by name, it said that on July 3, 2015 and/or July 4, 2015, the above-named defendant committed the offense of criminal conspiracy to end somebody's life, when, with the intention of promoting or facilitating the crime, he agreed to aid one or more persons in the planning or commission of the crime, or an attempt or solicitation to commit the crime, when he and/or a co-conspirator intentionally took someone's life. Kevin Coleman, Lawson's lawyer, confirmed the charges were in connection with Crystal's case. He was not willing to comment any further. Lawson is due back in court on October 26, 2023 for a pre-trial conference. This isn't Lawson's first brush with the law. He had a criminal past with charges including for the possession of methamphetamine, burglary, trespassing, and assault. Whether Steve Lawson, who phoned Brooks Houck on the night Crystal disappeared, is related to Joseph Lawson was not confirmed by investigators. A search of public records by a newspaper, however, stated that Steve Lawson in Bardstown, Kentucky, is related to Joseph Lawson. They are both the same age. A local newspaper spoke with Crystal's grandfather, Till Ballard, who confirmed that the FBI contacted relatives to let them know about Lawson's arrest. Mr. Ballard Sr. said he believes the two slayings were related. He said he hopes the arrest in Crystal's case will lead to a break in his son's shooting. Tommy was not going to stop searching. Somebody had to stop him. I think Lawson knows something about Tommy, too. Lawson is in custody, but his exact location is being withheld as protected under federal law. Finally, on September 27, 2023, Brooks Houck was arrested and charged with taking Crystal Rogers' life. His bond is set at $10 million cash. He is also ordered to not have any contact with Rogers' family. In a release, the FBI office said its officers have been laser-focused on our commitment to hold accountable those that were responsible for the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. Today, we take a significant step in making good on that promise. Houck was arraigned on October 5, 2023. The next step in the case is to announce a trial date. It is also expected that a third person could be arrested. Sherry Ballard had this to say after the arrest was announced. "To say today was overwhelming would be an understatement," she wrote. "I have waited 8 long, gruesome years for this day. To see Brooks Houck put in handcuffs was surreal for me. I have always known he was guilty. Now everyone will know that. I don't really even know the emotions I have felt today. I think probably everyone you could think of. I have to say thank you to the FBI. God sent me an angel when they came to my door. I personally know the work a certain agent put into this case and the long, tiring hours he spent to make this day happen. Never once did he forget the fact that I was a mother and a wife going through the most tragic time that a mother and wife could go through. I cannot imagine the toll this took on him. This day would not have happened without him. Thank you to all the help he had within his office. His co-workers worked very hard. I want to thank them for looking out for me and my family. Thank you also to the Nelson County Sheriff's Office for assisting in making sure this day happened. Thank you to the prosecuting attorney and his office."